All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I react to the comments that you have left in the comment section throughout the week and have a dialogue with you all through the internet, on camera, in video. Seems like a fun thing to do. Seems like a fun week to do this. Let's jump into it. The first question comes from, well, not question, hot take comes from this. I think the real question to ask is, will the juice be worth the squeeze? Talking about Jim Schwartz, will managing the potential rift in the coaching staff and already damaged feelings make the defense demonstrably better? I think no. Schwartz has shown that he's bad at late game adjustments, and this roster will be top 10 no matter who the DC is. I think this is a point you let him walk and look for someone who can be more dynamic and not have second half collapses every game. A single DC isn't just going to throw out what has already worked. I think we're being a little bit uncharitable to Jim Schwartz. Like the idea that every Jim Schwartz defense and the Jim Schwartz defense was always collapsing in the second half, I think is just demonstrably false. There's been plenty of strong second half performances, more strong second half performances than bad ones with Jim Schwartz. And again, I think Jim Schwartz does get a kind of bad rap sometimes from some Browns fans because the Browns offense is so shitty that the defense has to be perfect in order for them to win. And whenever the defense is not perfect, it stands out a lot more than it does with other defenses. But the Browns are in line with the Seahawks defensively. They're in line with the Houston Texans, and you can argue that the Browns defense was more impressive given how much they had to overcome their offense this year when a team like the Seahawks especially just didn't have to overcome their offense as much. Even a team like the Houston Texans didn't have to overcome their offense as much as the Cleveland Browns did. So I think this defense was as good as any defense in the NFL last year. I don't think they really had any issues, and I wouldn't look for the new defensive coordinator to elevate what they've done. I think they're already an elite defense. I don't think there's much better they can get here. They can get more solid, more consistent year to year, but they're not going to be much better than they were last year. I think that's kind of a fool's errand. That all being said, yeah, I kind of agree with most of what was said here. I think maybe we're being a little uncharitable to Jim Schwartz, but also, I think now that he's officially gone, right, you're probably going to be able to replicate what he did well, right? It's ironic because the Browns have the guy who did this as their offensive coordinator in Travis Schweizer, but when Greg Roman left the Ravens, the big concern was hey, Greg Roman's a run game genius. How are they going to replicate that run game genius without him being there? And then Travis Schweizer takes over and does a great job at doing it. Because what Greg Roman was great at is a quote that you've heard from Todd Monken and John Harbaugh, elegant simplicity. And the thing about elegant simplicity, this is real easy to copy. Right. And that's kind of the philosophy with the Browns defense. It's not complicated what they do, and it's not complicated on purpose. It's simple on purpose. It is a defense that is about having the better players and utilizing the fact that you have the better players. Right. When the Browns had a system that was more about the scheme winning than the players winning, that was Joe Woods. And we didn't get the best from Miles in that kind of a system, because we were too worried about trying to outsmart teams instead of just dominating them, which they were capable of doing with Myles Garrett. That's what Jim Schwartz has brought to the table. It's hey, we don't have to outsmart teams. We can just dominate them. We have a much better defensive roster than they do. We have a talent gap from them on the defensive side of the ball. Let's take advantage of that. The beauty of that is that it's not that complicated. Not to say that Jim Schwartz does nothing and that, anybody, I'm not saying that somebody from the comment section can go up and run the Browns defense. It takes some level of expertise, but I think that expertise can be picked up in the last 2 or 3 years while Jim Schwartz has been there. So if you promote from within, I think you have a high chance of being able to retain that level of defensive play. I wouldn't expect it to get better than it was last year. I think the Browns were if they had a good offense, would probably have been the best defense in the NFL last year. They did some truly remarkable shit last year. And a lot of the times when they gave up a bunch of points at the end of the game, it was really because the offense just wasn't giving them a goddamn thing. If the offense just gave them a little bit, I think that they would have had a lot better performances. But we'll see. I agree with you, though, for the most part on that take. The next hot take comes from Matt, who says this: "Hey, man, can I ask a general question? Who is the almighty God-like figure that sets expected points?" Okay, so what I'm getting from this is that people don't know what expected points is, and maybe I haven't done a good enough job of explaining expected points. So, listen closely as I try my best to explain what the expected points metric is. It is not somebody saying, "Oh, I think you should have scored here," and then giving you an expected point. It is an algorithm, right? So it's a mathematical equation that is based on offensive or defensive field position, down and distance situations, so first and short, second and short, third and short, fourth and short, so on and so forth, and probabilities based on precedent. So it is based on history. So what is the history of a team that gets the ball on 2nd and 2 at the opponent's 20-yard line? What is the history of that team scoring a touchdown? If that history is above a certain percentage point, then it is expected that they score from that field position a certain amount of points. So it's an objective stat, basically, is what I'm saying. It's not a subjective stat. This isn't like a PFF grade where there's a human behind the number and that guy is assigning the number or woman is assigning the number. It is an objective stat, whereas to say that this is all just about numbers, mathematics, and stuff like that. There's not a human saying, "No, I think you should have scored here." It's just about field position, down and distance, and what is the probability of a team scoring based on those things, and is it past a certain data point? That is what expected points is. It's not the Wiz. There's not somebody behind the curtain cooking up the expected points. So I hope that clarifies it. And that's why I think it's such an important stat, because it does give you context on field position. It does give you context on down and distance. It does give you context on what a team is working through and what opportunities they had that they missed out on that a traditional accounting stat just can't give you. Again, the thing with advanced metrics that I think people miss out on all the time is that advanced metrics provide context to the accounting stats, right? The traditional numbers that you see on every broadcast: touchdowns, yards, completion percentage, interceptions, right? Like the expected points number provides the context for that, and that's why those advanced metrics are super important, because if we're talking about validating somebody having a great touchdown interception ratio, but we look at their expected points and we're like, oh, they're not even capitalizing on half the opportunities that they have. So these numbers are a bit more inflated than you would think. Or if you see somebody with a number that's not as high as you would expect, but then you look at expected points and they're plus a bunch, it tells you that they're making the most out of these opportunities because they're not getting many. So they're just outperforming their conditions in a way. That's what expected points is really good at. Again, no stat can tell you this. No one stat can tell you the story alone, but these advanced metrics do provide context to some of the more widespread numbers, and I think that's a way to look at it. We're going to get into more hot takes, but first I got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Hey, have you heard of the Sleeper app? It is a place where you can go to play fantasy football. It's also a place you can go to do picks. You can put your knowledge on the line, make some picks, and see who knows ball the most, and maybe even, be rewarded for your knowledge. Go on the Sleeper app. Make sure you sign up using the promo code WORSTTAKE, and you'll get a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Make sure you check out the Sleeper app. Daryl C says this: I believe they interviewed the young guys as head coach candidates, but wanted them as OCs for Schwartz. When they wouldn't do that, Monken made the most sense. I don't know if this is even close to true. This makes no sense to me. I get where you're coming from, where you're like, oh, these guys aren't experienced, so they obviously weren't looking for them to be head coach. But I don't think that's true. I think they were interviewing Udinski because they were interested in him being a head coach. Because I don't think Udinski is leaving Jacksonville as offensive coordinator to be the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns. Don't think that happens. I understand that he gets play calling responsibilities here, but if I were him, and I'm pretty sure the Browns are aware, he probably stays in Jacksonville if he's not getting promoted to head coach. The same thing is true of Shieldhouse, who will probably become the Rams offensive coordinator. Well, no, they didn't hire. I don't think the offensive coordinator got hired away from the Rams. Did he? I think he did. Yeah, I think the same thing stands for Shieldhouse, where he's the pass game coordinator, and he also will probably become the offensive coordinator for the Rams. I don't think they would have been interested in a lateral move. Also, I don't think you interview somebody 2 times when you expect them to be an offensive coordinator. I think this makes sense if you think about it for like 10 seconds, but if you think about it for longer than that, I think that theory starts to break down. I think that they seriously considered Shieldhouse. They seriously considered Udinski. They seriously considered Jim Schwartz, and they seriously considered Todd Monken. And Todd's who they wanted to go with. And that's just kind of how it broke down. I don't think there was a secret agenda to make one of these young guys the offensive coordinator to Jim Schwartz. I think if Jim Schwartz would have got the job, Jim Schwartz is hiring whoever the fuck he wants to be the offensive coordinator. And maybe that was the problem with why Jim Schwartz didn't get the job. I think that's just how it went down from all accounts. Old but chill says, when he said, when we played the Browns, I was sliding protections to chip Myles Garrett, not Jim Schwartz. Hey, man, he's making a point there that we going to be all right? And I'm pretty sure when he got to that press conference, he was pretty realistic about Jim Schwartz not coming back. Now we know that Jim is not coming back, but I think when he said that, in his mind, he seems like a pretty pragmatic and practical guy. He's been around long enough to where he's read the writing on the wall before. He's been in Jim Schwartz's position. He knows what's up. He knows Jim Schwartz wasn't coming back. And he's just sending the message of like, hey, we got Myles Garrett. That's the thing. And I think that's an important message to send if you are Todd Monken, in order to make sure that people don't think that all of this is going to collapse because one guy is gone. Tracy with another hot take in the comment section. Shout out to Tracy, because they be putting in comments every week, and then every week I find one of these comments, I have to put them on screen, and then I have to talk about them, So shout out Trace. All right. I think the Falcons will have the same. Okay, so this is about my video with Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons. I think the Falcons will have the same injury issues with Penix that we have with Watson. That's interesting. Kevin is going to need to be more creative on offense, because if the Falcons release Cousins, which I think they are already announced they're going to do, he's in the same boat at QB. Maybe he tries to trade for Dillon Gabriel to back up Penix. This is the most fascinating, full circle opportunity that could happen for the Cleveland Browns, which is what if Kevin Stefanski offers to take Dillon Gabriel off your hands for a draft pick? Because I think it makes a lot of sense. It really does. From the Browns' perspective, they probably want to get rid of one quarterback because they're going to probably add another quarterback to the roster. Deshaun Watson will be healthy enough to probably be the emergency quarterback, so you got that factored in. You're going to need somebody to start. You're going to need somebody to back up, and I don't think you want to go into a quarterback competition in Todd Monken's offense of Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, simply because Dillon Gabriel is not compelling enough as a starting option, in my opinion, to really challenge Shedeur in any kind of meaningful way. So you would probably want to get off of Dillon Gabriel. If the Falcons offer to take him off your hands, you get an extra pick for that. You could probably use that pick to go and get the guy that you want to compete with Shedeur, whether it's a Justin Fields or a Anthony Richardson, whoever it is that you want to throw in there. I'm not really married to a name, by the way. Like, I know that I've had to throw out some quarterback names just to be fresh here. And the reason I'm saying being fresh is like, I want to throw out as many names as possible at quarterback because it could truly be anybody this offseason. It could be Geno Smith. It could be anybody. I don't care as much which name it is as long as it's like a certain group of names, because I kind of understand the position the Browns are in. They are at a position at quarterback where they got to throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. And that means that they're going to have to take a flyer on somebody who's imperfect, right? Every time I bring up a quarterback, everybody's like, well, that quarterback has flaws. I'm like, hey, guys, guess what? Whoever's starting quarterback for the Browns next year, they're probably going to have a lot of flaws because we're not in a position to be perfect at fucking quarterback. We're not even close to that, right? So, yeah, if you bring up Justin Fields, people are like, he can't throw. If you bring up Anthony Richardson, he's not good. It's like, yeah, man, we're going to have to do something imperfect. Malik Willis hasn't played a bunch. You want to go after Mac Jones. He was fucking terrible in Jacksonville when he was there. But, was fine with Kyle Shanahan. But how many times have teams bought the fool's gold from Kyle Shanahan? It's been a lot. There's not a perfect option that the Browns can go with. Every option that they could go with comes with considerable negatives and considerably known negatives. So, people are acting all smug, or not smug, but acting like the Browns. People are acting like they got champagne taste at quarterback this offseason, but the Browns are on a dollar store budget at quarterback, or a dollar store reality. We're not drinking champagne at the quarterback position anytime soon. At best, we can get purple drink. And purple drink can work. You know what I mean? Like, it could be fine, but we need to understand that's what our options are. We ain't shopping high tier. There's no high tier option for us to get. We don't have the number 1 overall pick. We can't get Mendoza, so we're going to have to settle for something from the clearance rack, brother. like, go ahead and pick what you want, but we shopping at the clearance rack. Something going to be imperfect. Either it's going to be the wrong size, or you're going to have one sleeve longer than the others. Like, the Browns are shopping for quarterback at Marshall's, okay? So that just is what it is. We can't be too picky, is my point. But if somebody is willing to take Dillon Gabriel off your hands, it does provide you an extra asset you can use to bring in somebody who might be a more meaningful foil or competition, or maybe mentor to Shador, or whatever it is that you want to do going forward. So yeah, I think that the best case scenario for the Browns is that Kevin wants Dillon Gabriel out there in Atlanta because he is left-handed and he does fit Kevin's system. So, yeah. Might be worth the squeeze on that for Kevin. It might be worth the squeeze for that for the Browns because I don't see Dillon fitting Todd Monken's system. So, yeah, great question, Tracy. And I think Tracy probably made the title of the video again. All right. Matt says this: how would you feel about Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles? Both would be high-level performers for years to come, and with the depth at other positions, filling those needs later. I'm curious on what your thoughts are on taking Bell for the upside. Yeah, I like Chris Bell. I'm not against it. My big thing with Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles is like, one with Caleb Downs, it's not a one-to-one fit on this defense because he's not a free safety. He's more of a box guy. He's not super rangy. I know Ohio State fans are going to get mad when I say that, but that's just what his tape says. There's not a lot of Caleb Downs being super rangy on tape against elite teams. He's probably going to do a lot of what Grant Delpit does, and that's a little bit too redundant for the 6th overall pick for me. The same thing goes with Sonny. The Browns don't need what Sonny provides as much on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it's just far more likely that they get more value in a trade back than they would by drafting those players straight up. Which is unfortunate because Caleb Downs is really good. And look, if the Browns did draft Caleb Downs, I'd be excited about it. But I don't know if the value is going to be more than what you could get in a trade back there, as far as like how much is he going to improve what is already an elite defense, All right, but that's it for hot takes. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.